Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second silver panel hosted by Six. We're joined today by Carlos Espinosa, CEO of Monarca Minerals, Sam Ash, the CEO of Bunker Hill Mining, and Sean Kunkun, CEO of Dolly Varden Silver. In this discussion, we'll be covering what our panelists think about silver prices, why they think silver is an attractive investment, as well as what might be coming up on the horizon. You can submit questions to the panel at any time using the Q&A panel found on the right-hand side of your screen. As always, this summit is being recorded. It'll be available to watch after on Six.com. Sean, I'd love if you could kick it off. Introduce yourself, introduce your company. What's going on with Dolly Varden?
Okay, thanks, Cam. Grateful to be here today. My name is Sean Kunkun. I'm the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver. We've got an exceptionally high-grade silver resource in the Golden Triangle in Northwest BC in Canada. It's home to some of the richest gold and silver mines on the planet. You've got Pretium's Brucejack. You've got SK Creek. So you've got a very unique pure silver high-grade mine in Canada.
Wonderful, thank you. I'll pass it along to Carlos.
Thank you very much, Cam. Carlos Espinosa, President and CEO of Monarca Minerals. We are listed on TSX Venture, and we have assets in Mexico. We have 3 assets, mainly silver, 2 of them in the state of Durango, 1 in the state of Chihuahua. Both of them are northern states, very friendly jurisdictions. And we are currently very excited and busy working on one of these properties called San Jose Project. It's almost 6,000 hectares property. And we are about to start drilling probably in the 6 or 8 weeks, the first 5,000 meters for drilling. This property is very close to Bismarck mine from Grupo Peñoles, which historically produced like 12 million ounces of tons at 52 grades of silver. So it looks like this is a good continuity of the property. We are excited about it and busy about it. Another 2 assets, Tejame with almost 30 million ounces of inferred resources, and San Lucas, which is a small property also in the state of Durango, where we are acquiring more land package to increase this property.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And last but not least, I'll pass it to Sam.
Thank you, Cam. Sam Ash with the CEO of Bunker Hill Mining, and we're here in northern Idaho, and we're working on restarting the Bunker Hill mine. Bunker Hill mine operated for over 100 years in northern Idaho, and over that time, roughly 50% of its revenue was derived from silver. It is a polymetallic deposit, but we certainly have a silver focus. 165 million ounces produced over that 100-year life, making it the 3rd largest producer in the Silver Valley in northern Idaho. In the last year, we have conducted 3 drill campaigns, published 2 resource statements, and most recently just published a PEA outlining the path towards restart for us. And we're busy here this year conducting exploration and advancing the technical work towards restart.
Wonderful. Thank you for those introductions, everyone. To kick things off, I'm going to pass it right back to you, Sam. We'll be going around the horn as well with all of these questions. Sam, what's your outlook on silver prices in the short to medium term, and what factors influence your view?
Well, I think that when I look at silver prices, I think that the trend is certainly upward, and I think what kind of frames that for me is the amount of liquidity that's being injected across the globe in a response to the COVID pandemic. I think, as an analog, you look at the inflation that you're seeing in different areas of the economy outside of silver, lumber, for instance. And I think that what the response that we've seen in precious metals compared to a lot of the commodities and the amount of liquidity in the market is actually somewhat subdued. So I think that over the short and medium term, the outlook's quite good for silver prices.
Thank you, Carlos. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with Sam. I see several factors that are helping the price of silver going up. I believe we're going to be around $30 very, very soon, and short after around 50. And you see a lot of things happening simultaneously. On one side, you see the U.S. going on big debt with this $1.9 trillion rescue program for the economy that is pushing on inflation. But also, you see investors now also investing more on physical silver than in the past, and also, which is very important, the use of silver in the industrial side, right? It's around 50% of the silver is going to industrial use, and you see now electric cars, hybrid cars, 5G network, and of course the big program on solar panels that will use a lot of silver. So it looks like the demand for silver is going to increase at least at 10% of the next year. So the conditions are there to push the price higher, which is great for companies like us that are already involved in that commodity.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, I think there's dozens of reasons I'm bullish on the silver price, short term, medium term, long term. Both Sam and Carlos have brought up some really good points. For me, it's supply and demand. You've got governments debasing currencies. You've got inflation. When I look at silver, like a lot of other hard assets, it's going to perform well. But I think the factors on the industrial side lead me to believe it's going to perform. And as Carlos mentioned, investor demand is picking up. I think historically we've seen investors represent about 30% of all physical silver that is mined, and we're seeing that really tick up in the last 2 years. So it's actually kind of the perfect storm for silver. And if you look historically, silver outperforms gold. Gold showed in 2019 and into 2020. It made a 50% move. We saw silver do that in a matter of weeks. And it's one of the few assets in the world that hasn't taken out its historic highs. So that's, I think, $50 silver is coming, and once it breaks that all-time high, it's going to get really interesting. So I'm probably in the extreme bullish camp.
Fair enough. Thank you all for that. That was a great way to introduce, I think, the rest of the conversation. And we touched on it a little bit there. But Carlos, and you mentioned it, what is the future of silver regarding the green revolution and the continuing electrification of the world?
I think it's huge. It's very important. I was reading an article talking about the use of silver on a regular car, not even in a hybrid or electric. And just an average car, it has like 2 ounces of silver. And you don't have a substitute for silver on that. When you add up the technology for hybrid or for electronic, it's way larger amount of silver that you're going to need for the cars. And you see the policies and the trends in Europe, in the US, and some other parts of the world that really are pushing really hard for green cars. It's the demand just to increase dramatically. And same with the connectivity, right? We're all the countries trying to improve the network, and this network for 5G, it's a must to include the silver. And of course, as we mentioned before, the panels, right? You need the panels that, or you are going to different clean energies ways to do it. And one is the solar panel that use again silver, and you go to aeolic, etc. So I see what I see is not something that it's just fashion. It's a real trend, and it's the right path to go if we want to take care of the planet as well, right? It's not something that it's just sounds fancy, but it's really the right way to go. Try to be clean and try to protect our planet, and clean energy is going to be a big player on that, and silver is a big component. So I just see going up and up and up on this way, and the question is going to be now if we're going to be capable to produce enough silver for the demand that is coming in the next coming years.
It'll certainly be interesting to see how that pans out, and all the different avenues and different ways that we'll have to investigate that with. But Sam, what are your thoughts?
Well, when I think of that, and I think the kind of the future on the demand side of silver and the supply side, what I look look at is that it's kind of an interesting nexus in mining, in the whole mining industry. And silver is certainly an important part of that. I think what you're seeing is that the world economy is essentially remaking itself, and that's going to create enormous demand for metals. And I think the world is just kind of waking up to the fact that the mining industry across a wide variety of commodities has been underexplored and underinvested in. And I think that that's going to be really supportive. And I think that along the lines, silver is used in a lot of the emerging technologies that we're looking at. But I think as the pace of technological advancement comes up and continues to develop, that there's going to be uses for silver that are coming down the pipeline that we haven't really seen yet. I think that's positive. And I think that silver is really perfectly positioned in that space between industrial demand and as a store of value. So it straddles that fence. So it's perfectly positioned for industrial demand and at the same time as a store of value in a inflationary environment. So it's really quite perfectly positioned in my perspective.
Right, absolutely. Sean, what do you think about the future of silver, and especially in regards to all of these topics?
Well, Cam, I think it's a great question, because I think when we think of a clean future, the new Green Deal, I think a lot of investors think of copper, and it's not known by a lot of generalists how critical silver is in the electrification infrastructure. Not just in collecting electrons in solar panels, but in charging stations and in so many components in that infrastructure. So as populations demand clean air, as emerging countries and populations are looking to tap into the grid, I think silver is and that's what makes silver so special, so unique, and so rare. It's really, there's no substitute for it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you all for your amazing perspectives on this. Sean, I'm going to go right back to you. Can you tell me about the advantages of working in the jurisdiction that your company operates out of, and get into that a little bit?
Sure. So we're a Canadian company. We're located in Northwest BC in an area that is known as the Golden Triangle. So one of the biggest competitive advantages we have at Dolly Varden Silver is we're part of an organization called the BC RMA. It's the BC Regional Mining Alliance. So we've got a partnership with the BC government, with our First Nations partner, the Nisga'a, and we work collectively to bring awareness and to promote the area. It's not, there's not a lot of companies out there that can call members of the government. I can pick up the phone and call the deputy minister, and he'll get on a call with me to an investor in New York or London to explain the permitting process, to explain that as long as you are operating in a conscious way, we will get our permits in a timely manner. So we're seeing a lot of validation from major corporates like Newmont and Newcrest, with a swarm of M&A activity. Most recently, a $500 million acquisition of GT Gold. So I think we're all biased that we think our jurisdictions are the best. But for me, as a resident here in Vancouver, speaking English, using Canadian dollars, there's just an ease and simplicity of having a project in my backyard where the jobs that we're going to create in the future are going to benefit my neighbors and my friends and my family. And that I can go on, like I could spend probably hours on federal and provincial tax incentives, the workforce we have. But I'll pass it over to Carlos and Sam. But really, BC, the Golden Triangle, this is the best place to mine, to operate, to explore. It's beautiful, and we do a great job of respecting both the environment, but also developing these projects, creating jobs, creating wealth, and it's truly, we're demonstrating that there could be a win-win-win.
Wonderful. With that, Carlos, tell us about your jurisdiction.
I think I'm moving to VC after hearing John.
I'm also on the tourism board.
No, but I'm glad to hear he's having such a great experience. And I'm originally from Mexico. I've been living in Canada for 20 years, but still Canadian Mexican. And doing business in Mexico for me is very easy because of the cultural knowledge in both Canada and Mexico. But talking specifically about Mexico, it's the #1 producer of silver in the world. Last year, on 2019, they produced 190 million ounces of silver. It's a country that has been producing silver or mining for over 5 centuries. So especially central Mexico to all northern Mexico are areas that have been producing silver, gold, copper, and so on for centuries. So this is a big advantage for any company who is landed in Mexico in terms of finding that the people are educated. You can find good engineers, good geologists, good workers. You can find good suppliers with a lot of experience and knowledge of the region, and so it's an industry that is well developed in Mexico. And in our case, we always spend time developing also the relationship with the 3 levels of the government, from the federal, state, and municipal level. And we have a very good results, great relationship with all these governments. So when we go through the process of permitting or moving forward in a project, we have the support from the government. We haven't been in the position to ask for support to solve anything, but the communication is wide open. Every time I go to Mexico, I meet with authorities, share the plan that we have, the next steps, and it's an open communication, which is great. So it's a country that its first language is Spanish, but it still is fully bilingual, English and Spanish, on the technical aspects. So if we are flying some technical people from Canada or the US, there's not an issue. So overall, it's a great place to do business.
Wonderful. And with that, Sam?
Well, there's a common parallel, and I don't want to just repeat what's said, but I think what you're hearing is that for a North America-based resource company, there's a lot of advantages that are in parallel across all 3 of our jurisdictions. And I think the common parallels that you see consistency in governance and predictability. Having a regulatory authority that is looking to not only uphold high standards, but at the same time open to collaboration, and also supportive of and understanding of the importance of the natural resources sector, both to the more global economy, but certainly to the economic benefits at a more local level. And I would just add, the Silver Valley in northern Idaho is an absolutely stunning place to live. I live here in Kellogg at the mine site, and it's a fantastic support from the local community. It's a community that has over 100-year tradition of mining. Mining is in their blood, and they certainly love the mining industry and are very, very supportive. So it's a great place to do business.
Awesome. And I love that you brought that up, Sam. One of the interesting aspects of this panel in particular is that we have companies from 3 mining jurisdictions in Canada, America, and Mexico. So to the panel, and maybe we'll start with Sean. What are some advantages or benefits to operating in North America compared to other regions in the world that you see or that you're aware of that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess first off, there's certain countries in the world, Argentina comes to mind, where it's very well endowed and home to some of the biggest, richest silver mines in the world. But for shareholders, companies getting money out of Argentina and bringing it back to the U.S. or Canada is a difficult exercise. So that's a challenge. The pandemic highlighted, for me, the importance of having something that I can drive to. When I had friends and colleagues that were not being able to get into Brazil because of lockdowns and restrictions, that's a huge competitive advantage. I've got to be careful what I wish for in terms of precious metal prices, because if the prices go to where I think they could go, some of the challenges in some countries are going to be nationalization, expropriation. And so, for all of us here, Mexico, the United States, and Canada has a long, stable history of allowing companies to operate. The tax programs that are in place are reasonable, and the incentives are fantastic. So, for me, there's different risks we all take, and for me, I'm not willing to take the jurisdiction risk for some of the great opportunities in other jurisdictions, because ultimately, if the project is not going to be ours, despite how rich it is, there's no value to the shareholders. So for all those reasons, I think we have a competitive advantage for a lot of countries out there. Thank you.
Awesome. Carlos, what do you think about the North American benefits?
Yeah, I think Sean did a great analysis about the advantages of North America. And I think on top of that, when you see the profile of the investor, most of the investors that we have in North America have a very good knowledge of what is happening in the region. You see companies listed on London, they know very well about Africa. You're going to see companies listed on Australia, they know what's happening in Australia and Asia, China, Mongolia, and so on. But if you really want to do a good fit between investors and mining opportunities, North America is offering a very good balance between knowledge, stable locations, proximity, right? In my case, I'm not able to drive to the site, but we have a very strong local team. That's what I mentioned before. Our local team, local suppliers that are already in Mexico, that on the current time of COVID haven't been disrupted as much as some other companies that need to fly people to different countries. So I see a very good interaction. Our shareholders mainly came from Canada, US, Mexico, and we have some group from Germany as well on the company. But really, the big mass is a group of people who knows very well the region, and they believe in the region.
Thank you, Carlos. Sam, you brought it up. Do you have any other points that you'd like to mention about this?
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind is that is kind of an emerging point of focus, certainly for the United States, is the idea of resource security. And when you look across the globe, and it's not only from securing the access to resource, but it's the way in which those resources are accessed from an environmental and a social responsibility standard. Between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, we're blessed with a tremendous mineral endowment, but we're also able to ensure that the metals that are fueling the economy are brought to market in a very sustainable way. And the regulation and the partnerships with the regulatory agencies and government that ensure that, I think that you may actually see a point where those resources are priced at a premium because of the high focus that is placed on the sustainable way that those metals are produced in North America.
Okay. And for a bit of a pivot now, but as many conversations these days do, I'd like to ask the panel, what has the effect of COVID-19 been on silver? And are there practices that you're taking with you as we hopefully move towards a state of recovery? Carlos, would you like to maybe kick this off?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has been challenging in many ways, especially at the very beginning of the pandemic. In the case of Mexico, Mexico was hit really, really bad. So government shut down the offices and everything was closed. And in our case in particular, we were delayed on some permitting process because of that. And I mean, you need to adapt and you understand. And the most important is the health of the people. So we are taking care of our staff and be sure implement the new procedures to be sure that they are doing well. And when we start working with contractors, also we are talking with contractors on the programs to prevent any spread of the COVID, and we are educating the community where we are working as well and trying to support them. So working together, it's a good result we have now, and good things and bad things that came from COVID. Um, some of the advantage we saw is having event like this today, where we can connect with people from all over the world, literally. Uh, when you do also a roadshow to raise money, you had a chance to meet with people from different parts of the world on the same day, on a very inexpensive way, which is very positive. And on the other side, on the downside, it's if you don't have a live conferences because of COVID, we are missing a lot of opportunities to interact with some of our peers, sometimes to discuss potential uh, M&A or acquisitions or so on, right? So, when you are on a live conference, sometimes this casual conversation on a coffee break became the main topic of the convention and could lead us to a good deal. So we are missing this. So we have some good and bad things happening, and what I see for the future is going to be a hybrid between these kind of events and live events, and for sure more cautious on terms of not spreading the COVID anymore.
Right, of course. Sam, how do you see?
I think I have something fairly specific to start with. Is that probably one of the biggest impacts that we saw from COVID was the impact in the assay turnaround time for us over the last year. There was a period of time where a lot of drilling programs across the Western United States slowed down in a response to COVID, and then when that kind of came back online late last summer, there was a lot of people and companies making up for lost time. And that, of course, then had a downstream effect on the assay lab. We're working through that. That's improved a lot here over the last month, which is good to see. A little closer to home, COVID really gave myself actually an opportunity to put my full focus on what was a pretty busy year here at the mine site. So I live in Kellogg, and I'm able to walk to work to the mine every day. And make sure that the project is advancing. And Sean and I were talking before this and about the importance of spending time at site, with the teams that are advancing the project. And that's incredibly valuable. And then, as Carlos said, the ability to still communicate globally while doing that has really kind of been refreshing. I feel like I'm been able to have a lot of communication with on a global level with the capital markets, but at the same time, make sure that it remained focused on the absolutely critical work of making sure that the project is advancing safely.
Thanks for that, Sean. What about you?
That is a big question. When I think back to 2020 and I think of the onset of the pandemic, and the question about silver and how that's been impacted by COVID, with refiners shutting down and mints shutting down and mines shutting down, and at the same time, investors wanting to get their hands on physical metal, it led to a surge in silver demand, and it led to a surge in silver prices. So COVID's had some pretty drastic impacts on silver. It's had some drastic impacts on the mining industry, on how we do business. But like Sam said, like for myself at Dolly Varden, We had one of our most active years in terms of price appreciation, financing activity. We raised over $27 million just in the summer of last year. So, there was a lot of, we took it as an opportunity to put our heads down and to get a lot done. I gotta thank some of our suppliers, our contractors, because they worked with us to adopt some standard operating practices and procedures to ensure that the communities that we operate in were safe. We had some, some of the stuff was common sense, rigorous cleaning, social distancing, but we took it a step further with temperature checks, quarantine, and the key, and I think Sam and Carlos talked about this, is communication. If you're communicating with your investors, your staff, your community, and if you're on top of that, you can operate in any environment. I think high level. I think production globally was down a few percentage points, but thankfully there was a lot of new mines that came on to offset some of the shutdowns. That's how I think COVID's affected silver, but we're at a point now where we've got some great safety procedures in place moving forward.
Great, thank you. Now, before we move on to Q&A from the audience, I'd like to go around and just ask, what's coming up? What are some catalysts on the horizon for your company specifically? Carlos, could you start us off with that?
Absolutely. For us, most of our energy is focused on San Jose project. As I mentioned, it's a project that haven't been drilled before. It's a brand new discovery. Our Mexican team found it on 2019. We acquired. We did some geophysics. We find a very, very good target, and we are almost ready to drill. We already have the map, but we're going to start drilling the first 5,000 meters. We're expecting to get results or start drilling, in probably the next 6 to 8 weeks. So currently, our share price is really undervalued because we haven't had much activity in the last few months because of COVID and permitting process before the drilling. But I'm sure this drilling program is going to be very successful. So if some of the audience interested in going for an exploration project that's going to be a new success story, this is the one to take a look. So I'm happy to share more information with the audience if they need it.
Great, thank you. Sean, what are some upcoming catalysts for your company?
But Cam, if I can, before I get into that, I think it's important to tell the audience, why I'm here and what I'm seeing as some of the trends, and then how that sort of gets into what we're doing here for Dolly and our strategy. But essentially, what I've witnessed in the last few years is silver miners get into gold, get into base metals, and it demonstrates to me that there's a lack of good quality silver projects all around the globe. Forget great jurisdictions like the panel here. So there's a shortage of good silver. There's a shortage of pure silver. That's going on. So what we have at Dolly Varden is we have a site that had 2 past producing mines. These mines, they're some of the richest silver mines in the world, richest silver mines in Canada. So what we inherited, what were left intact were some silver ounces that at 85 cents in 1959 were not economic. So fast forward to 2021, $26, $27 silver. We put out a resource in 2019 with 44 million ounces of silver at 300 grams per ton. And it's pure silver. That's not a silver equivalent. We've had 2 successful years of drilling, 2019 and 2020, where we extended and expanded that resource. So my strategy is to advance our main mines as we look to find new mines. We've got only 3% of the property's been explored. So what we've got is really a region, a district. We're sandwiched between a couple of big mines. And we've got some huge, giant mines to the north. SK Creek comes to mind, where they produced 200 million ounces of silver at 2,000 grams per ton, not to mention all the high-grade gold they produced as well. So, catalyst for us, we've got treasury. We've got over 20 million in the bank. So we're about to open camp in a few weeks here, and we're going to be aggressively drilling. 50% of the focus is around the mines that did produce, to grow, to expand, to advance. And the other 50% is to find new mines. And I'm blessed that I've got some of the smartest scientists that know the nuances of the Golden Triangle. They've worked on all the big mines in the area. And this team has come together to unlock Dolly Varden. And it's exciting. And what I'm here to do is I'm here to advance this project, and I'm here to I think this cycle you're going to see Stewart and all the mines around it, north, south, east, and west, get into production. And I would love to see the Dolly Varden be a part of that story.
Sam, I'll pass it over to you now.
Yeah, so we've been pretty clear since the current executive and management team joined the company that what we see in Bunker Hill is an asset that has a tremendous mineral endowment, and is really has the capability of being a cornerstone asset of a multi-asset, precious focused producer in North America, and that's really what we're focused on. And so we're focused on that in a couple of ways. On the back of the PEA, we're doing the engineering work to advance towards restart. We are in parallel conducting an ongoing drilling campaign through the summer, focused both on silver, but also to a much lesser extent on resource conversion from inferred to indicated. So you'll see that advancing. You'll see results as we go forward through the summer, and in parallel to that, we're exploring our restart financing options. I'm sure that some of the people on the call noticed that a couple of weeks ago we engaged Cutfield Freeman to work for us on looking at what our restart financing options are. So that's really where we're headed, is to restart a mine with a resource that is really ready to go back into production. And that's what we're working towards.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll remind the attendees that are live that you can submit any questions that you have for the panel using the Q&A chat on the right-hand side of your screen. So please do. But with that, we'll get into some live question and answers that have come from the audience. So first question comes from Richard Gonda. Can you comment on the silver-gold ratio and what that currently signifies in relation to the trend moving forward on price?
Can I jump on that one?
Absolutely.
So when I took on Dolly Varden, I came in as CEO in the Q1 of 2020. So I've been here for about 14 months. The silver to gold ratio at that time was about 100 to 1. And I was watching, silver being mined at about 8 to 1. And I was looking at historic, even when I say historic, last 50, 100 years, ratios of 30 to 1. So at 100 to 1, it was a no-brainer for me to jump both feet into silver. We're currently around 70 to 1. But I think that we'll go back to the historic averages of the last 50 to 100 years of 30 to 1, and there's a chance that we move back into an even lower ratio that would represent the natural setting of 15 to 1 in terms of what's in the Earth's crust, or at some monetary relationships of 10 to 15 to 1.
Absolutely. Carlos, Sam, do either of you?
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation. Just to add on that usually or historically, silver catch up later on time. So I think it's still in process to catching up. So we are on the right track. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Sam, do you have any comments on that?
I tend to agree with Sean. I think that over time we'll revert to the to the more historical mean of somewhere between 15 and 30.
Absolutely. Thank you. The next question comes from Adrian Cantwell. Has COVID impacted potential M&A activity in the precious metals sector?
Well, I can jump in on this one, and short answer is yes. It's not only is difficult to connect on peers and start exploring some potential M&A opportunity, but also really challenging to site visit. Last year, or actually at the end of 2019, we were considering to JV San Jose project with another mining company in Mexico, a producer, and we started a very good conversation. We had a great couple of meetings over PDAC in 2019, and as you recall, after PDAC, Toronto was shutting down. The main conversation we had was with the country manager in Mexico of this company, and because of COVID, he was unable to visit our site. And when the mining started reopening in Mexico, his first focus was to go back to their own operation and start up and get the business back again. So in our case, and I think happens to several people the same or something similar, have been challenging to really get the deal if you haven't visited the site before.
Absolutely. Sean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Carlos 100%, and it's something that me and Sam were talking about before we went live. From site visits to it's often an informal bump in at a conference or an event where that sparks discussions. Having peers together at a remote setting like Beaver Creek, Colorado, where there's really nowhere to go other than to chat with each other about the opportunities. So yeah, I think it's hampered M&A, but I also think it's actually probably been to all of our benefits because it's so early in the cycle that it may not be the best time to do we may not have realized anywhere near fair value for our individual projects. So it's we might have gotten lucky there.
Fair enough. Sam, so what do you think?
Well, when I look at it, I think it certainly makes the mechanics, a bit more challenging. But I think also, I think a lot of companies and a lot of projects, because of that challenge, have really redoubled their focus and effort internally on their own project. And so I think that in the long run, what you'll see is that the quality of the merger M&A activity is going to be of a higher quality because over the last year there was a focus on one's existing assets and focused internal as opposed to external. And I think that'll pay dividends with coming through in the advancement that's been made technically across a lot of projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I would like to pose to the panel if there's any other themes that you'd like to bring up before we sign off for today about silver, about your companies, about your jurisdictions. Is there anything you feel like you haven't covered that you think that investors should know about, potential investors, or people in general, just about silver and the industry?
I guess the one thing that I would highlight, and it kind of goes from our recent discussion here on M&A, is I think every company here is a takeover candidate, and I think that at these valuations based on very, very little incentives for mid tiers and majors to go out to explore, to develop, to have the funds to advance projects in their development pipeline. We got to remember, up until a year or two ago, most mines were barely profitable, and so because of that, I think that as we move into a price territory that the economics for mines are now becoming more favorable, I think there's just going to be a swarm of M&A activity, and I think that's exciting for investors because they're going to see premiums come into their companies. It's I think it's going to be a very interesting time. We've yet to see the generalists come into the space. Other asset classes have been much more appealing to trend followers, things like cryptocurrencies and other exciting tech small cap opportunities. So I think that our time's now coming. We're seeing a great rotation into the commodity complex, and silver really has it's got two sides to the coin. It's got the money side, and it also has the industrial component that is growing rapidly. I think Keith Newmeyer at First Majestic has got it right on with their with their part of the website where they talk about having no substitutes for silver. It really truly isn't, and I think that's probably why Sam, Carlos, and myself have devoted our energy and our time to this opportunity. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'll leave you with that.
Carlos, do you have any words on that?
I mean, Sean resumed perfectly. I just to add up, it's just to mention, I want to thank you for organizing this event and the people for the interest in learning more about silver. And definitely, I invite you guys to take a look at our companies and learn more from our companies. It was great to have 3 companies from different countries, products in different stages. So every one of us has different components, and I think when the people are building their own portfolio, they need to find the right fit for of a piece on this, but definitely consider silver as an important piece of the portfolio.
Absolutely. Sam?
I think I'd like to leave with just a brief comment on ESG, and I think that it's a topic that comes up a lot, but I think that one thing that's clear is that the demand for metal in the world is continuing to grow, but society is demanding that metal is delivered in a much more responsible manner across both the environment and the local communities. And I think that the companies who focus on this and treat ESG as actually a generator of value from a company perspective and take it very, very seriously are the ones who are actually going to be able to advance projects and deliver projects and deliver value to shareholders. And I think that that is going to be a key differentiator between in this next wave of the commodity cycle. Is the true winners are going to be the ones that pay just as much attention to ESG and their performance as they do to the traditional technical aspects of mining.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know I had said that would be a signing off message from each of you, but we've actually had a few questions come in just the last couple of minutes. Net Browser asks, when do you think actual production will commence at your operations? If any of you would like to take that right away.
Yeah, so we're working, as I said, on exploring options of restart financing, and the project timelines look that between 15 and 18 months post-financing that we can be into operation here at Bunker Hill.
Wonderful.
Yeah, in our case, we're still exploring the properties, so it's still way to go for us.
Fair enough. Sean?
The way I'm looking to drive value for our shareholders is through adding ounces in the ground. And, we've got a resource. The next steps would be a PEA. So I'll let the guidance from those studies guide production timing.
Okay. And the next question has come in is from Adrian Cantwell again, just regarding inflation. Are there any cost pressures showing up yet?
I would say, for me, and this is something that I saw last cycle around 2010. Wage pressure, labor scarcity, and Sam mentioned lumber. Those are the two that stand out.
Fair enough. Sam, Carlos?
I think what I would see is kind of a disruption to supply chain more than necessarily a cost escalation. It can be very challenging and difficult to actually source certain items, and there's no particular one. And sometimes they surprise you, where something that was readily available at short lead times a couple of months ago is now weeks, if not months away. So I would see, just a slight difference on that, but certainly the COVID and the disruption of supply chains that has occurred with that can crop up in unexpected areas at times.
Yeah, I agree with Sam. And I mean, we see, and we're going to see more short on services and as well as good people. Last year, despite the COVID, we saw a lot of financing. Just as Sean mentioned, they raised money over the summer. We raised over the summer some money as well. So, which is unusual for a regular year. Usually the summer is so quiet, but last summer was very, very active in terms of financing. So now companies has the money, start working again, and then you're gonna see shortage or delays. For example, you are drilling and then send the samples to the lab, and the waiting list is getting longer and longer. So it's going to be something that's going to be impacting the industry and on a very different phases, which is each company is working on. But yeah, definitely it's a lot of activity, and it's going to increase the prices. Going to be delays on the services.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And with that, we are truly this time going to begin to close things off. So I'd like to, of course, first and foremost, thank everyone who has come and attended this event, anyone that's asked questions, and as well, of course, all of our panelists. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for this enlightening conversation. And with that, I will be closing things off. So thank you again. This is being recorded, and we will be posting this in the future. If you didn't think of a question or you think of one later, please feel free to submit your questions via email. Thank you very much. And I hope everybody has a good weekend.
Thank you very much, Sam and Sean.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to share the panel with you guys.